have donations, but at this point in time, we're using rental income, which will be reimbursed with time, and I believe based on the process will be rewarded handsomely in the future. But we've indicated right around $35,000. Quite frankly, it may be more, especially if we extend the timeline beyond December, which I personally believe we will have to in terms of making sure that everyone has a voice. We need to make sure, like Trustee Lorenzen indicated, we need to make sure that people have a chance to voice their opinion, their concerns, their issues. The only problem is that it costs money to do it. We knew this going in. As my dad, a World War II veteran, used to say to me, Alex, you're on the dance floor, you better dance, and you better dance fast. So I don't know what else to say to you other than this money is being utilized in the best fashion possible to continue the involvement of our staff and our community.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to approve this additional funds, and I'll ask there's not a motion on the floor. So I would ask if there would be a motion on the floor so we can discuss. Is there a motion by Trustee Wills? Is there a second? Trustee Smith, it's open for discussion now. Trustee Wills?
So we had a $35,000 bill on it, now we don't have one, or what is it?
Well, I'm not sure where it's going to end up. Right now, we've spent, if you look at page 116, you can see specifically how the money's been spent so far. For example, in terms of our October meetings, we spent $9,549. In terms of November, we're looking at about $8,934, and we're projecting about $11,106 in total in terms of our December expenses, which total about $29,590.37. But my sense is that we'll go beyond that figure. Now, we can do, like Nick indicated in Colorado, where they just get the group of administrators together and make decisions. That's not Missoula. That's not us. We don't do business that way. I don't think anybody in this room would want us to do that. This is a very unique approach to making sure that people in this community have a voice and that our staff, every staff member, has an opportunity to express their opinion. That's why we've developed these teams at each one of our schools, and each program is represented. That's the way that you should conduct business as it relates to a major issue such as this. To not offer people the opportunity to participate, we wouldn't get off the ground, quite frankly. We would not move forward. So I just want to mention that I don't believe that $35,000 is going to do it. I'm saying that on the 12th of November, and I think we could exceed that. But again, we're not using it to go play golf. We're using it to involve our community and our staff in a very important process.
Trustee Holland?
I guess that just my question, it sounds like what's happened is we could anticipate the hard costs, the things like hiring CTA, hiring WGN, hiring D.A. Davidson, hiring all those experts who can provide information, but these were some unanticipated, I'm just going to use the word soft costs instead, to make sure our staff can participate and that those who participate have some coffee to drink in a room that's more easily accessible than like our cafeterias that are open at lunch and things like that. But I guess it doesn't make sense to me to do it piecemeal. Like either I mean, are we come back next month and for another 9,000 or?
Well, I mean, we can't project specifically what it's going to cost. The first thing I ran into in our October meetings, I had a couple of parents come up to me and say, "Where are the donuts?" And we didn't have the donuts. So I ran to Mark and I said, "Mark, we need to get some donuts in here." I mean, people are there trying to do their very best to contribute to a very important cause. And we have an obligation as a school district to welcome them, to respect them, and this is part of the process. We have to provide a little coffee. We have to provide a donut. We have to provide a sandwich. After all, they're there all day long trying to move through this very important work. So can I itemize every piece of pastry or anything? I can't do it. I just can tell you that the money's being well spent. That's all I can tell you. And if we want this process to move forward, we need to step up to the plate and do it.
Trustee Lorenzen?
Thank you. I guess my concern here is transparency. This came to a committee with a recommendation that it goes through this board on the consent agenda. And the agenda item for the committee didn't actually name an amount. I showed up to committee thinking 3,000-4,000, yeah, whatever. But it's 35,000. And then I got to thinking, well, how much has the public seen of this? Because we want public input, we want public feedback. We have to take the good with the bad. We have to look the people in the eye and say, we want $35,000 that we could otherwise spend to fix your school, but instead we're going to spend it this way. And I think that we need to be really, maybe stop putting things automatically on the consent agenda. So I read the minutes, and I got the minutes clear back to January 2011, and I followed the history of this facility study, and I couldn't find where it had been to a regular board meeting. I could not find where it had been discussed in public in a regular board meeting. The original cost of $152,000 went through the March 2013 board meeting on the consent agenda without board discussion and without public comment. So on one hand, we want transparency in a controlled fashion, but we also need to show the public the other side and take our licks. And I did notice when reading the minutes that every time it came up, Trustee Sadler expressed concern about cost. And I think that would have helped if that expression could have been expressed in a public meeting. Another concern I have, and it's related to this, we seem to be putting off all the facility decisions off until the plan is finished. We haven't had agenda items related to facilities in that record that I read. I found the public coming in and trying to get us to put some facility questions on the agenda, but we didn't. And I think the thing we need to understand, because of how boards work, this isn't the board that's going to vote on this plan. And so 7 of the 11 members are going to go up for election before the plan cycle is finished. And so I think it's really important to create a written public record, because this board of the future is going to say, what's this about? They're going to do what I did. They're going to pick up those minutes and read them. And if we keep putting things on the consent agenda, there's not going to be a record for them to read. And this is going to look like it was just applied to the district. So I think we're missing an opportunity at this board meeting to put it out there, the 35,000, the original 152,000, all of it, put it out there and say, we're going to spend this money in this way instead of in that way. And we also, I would like to see us, you know, I know we have these plans to have people meet in these off-site locations and things. I'd like to see us pull the real discussion into this board meeting, because if you want public to see something, it's got to be in this room. And if you want a written, permanent record of what went on, it needs to be in this room.
Additional board comment? Okay. So we have a motion that's been moved and seconded that's before us. Trustee Sadler?
I think what you just brought up is something that we really should be discussing at our December meeting with the whole board, because it's really something we should talk in depth about, where we can have give and take and so forth. It's I think would be a good thing to do that. But as to where we're at now, asking for these additional funds, I'm hoping when the facility plan comes forward that we do discuss where they can, because our district has no place for meetings. We have places for small meetings, And if we have a daytime meeting, it's very hard to use our high schools and grade schools. A lot of districts actually have to have meeting centers and so forth. So I'm hoping that happens. But I would vote for this. It is in public now, and we are discussing it, so maybe, yeah, so.
Trustee Smith?
I guess to the motion that is here, I was thinking as Jim was talking about when we were talking about Big Sky High School and why it is the way it is and where it is, and how there was no forethought. And I just want to dovetail that into the reason that we are having these facility discussions and all this planning is absolutely worth the investment, and I will vote for the motion. I agree with Diane. If there are concerns about the transparency, you know, people need to find out about that. They need to go to the F&O meetings and where it's discussed in depth, and also to, you know, to ask questions, and that's okay. But to this point, that the motion that's on the table, I think it's worthwhile investment, and I don't think it's a matter of spending $35 here and not there, because there are sunk costs and there are investments in different ways to look at this. I see this as a very worthwhile investment, and I think it'll pay many times over.
Trustee Pierce?
On this, is there food? We've talked a lot about Danishes. Is there the cost for those on any of the? Is there a printout anywhere I can look at? And I only bring that up because now, and I understand I've done event planning before. There are those miscellaneous things. There are people coming up and saying, "Hey, we forgot forks." Somebody go out and buy forks right away, and that's going to cost more than forks I bought 2 weeks in advance. So rather than, I mean, $35 is a Honda. Like, that's 35,000 is a Honda. Like, there's a plate of cookies right there. Are those going to be brought to the next facility meeting? Have we looked at more cost-effective ways to provide some of those unexpected costs that we're seeing, that we saw the first time? Because no one's going to get it right the first time. And as a board member, I understand that. But before I vote to give additional funding, I'd like to see at least what did those cost, and where can we look at, hey, maybe the dollar store has some coffee we can get. Just so that, in relation to Diane's comment, that we are being transparent in that we are taking into account that we're dealing with the same budget issues that a lot of our families are dealing with on a much smaller scale. We're going to look at coupons. We're going to look at, maybe we don't need to buy those. So I would just like to see that information before I vote.
Trustee Dixon?
Along that same line, I was just thinking, if we are spending money on food for people, could we look into the possibility of one of our family consumer science classes providing that? Because then they would get experience in preparing food. I mean, I don't know the feasibility, and I know that there's issues there, but I feel like in a time when budgets are so tight, there's hardly supplies for classrooms, that it is hard to find, like a happy medium there. But I do think that this is a good thing, the $35,000, just because I know substitutes cost a lot of money, and I think that our teachers really need to be there, and so I fully support the fact that we're paying for their replacements so that they can participate in this process. So thank you for that, and I also hope that classified and certified staff are both involved.
Okay.
Trustee Tompkins?
I'm the one that pulled this off I didn't want to put it on the consent agenda, and specifically for the reasons that Diane mentioned. I realize the predominance of these costs are for substitutes, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. I don't actually have a problem with the $35,000. What I have a problem with is putting it on the consent agenda and not talking about it in public.
Trustee Holland?
And just to clarify the process, it's on an agenda item for the committee, and the committees actually try to meet at a time where more people can come so that we can have public comment at the time it's discussed in more depth. Because as we see here, we have no public at the point we're discussing it. So the reason it often ends up, I mean, it doesn't need to be on the consent agenda, but the way our committee system is designed, that it's going to be discussed at depth and explained more at depth at a time during the day, like either noon or at 3, that more staff or public can come, and we did. So it is presented as a previously identified agenda item under the Public Meeting Act for the Finance and Operation Committee meeting, where we're asking for public comment, and typically that's where you get more public comment than we ever do at school board meetings. Yeah.
I guess it would be my perception, because I can't make it to teaching and learning and P&P meetings, that there would be no public at the F&O meeting. And so that's why I actually wanted to bring it. I think this structure where we talk about everything at the very end of the meeting that's important is ridiculous.
Okay, but I just wanted to clarify, there is
Point of order, folks. You have to be recognized by the chair to speak. Just a point of order. Trustee Sadler?
Is an F&O filmed on MCAT? I know teaching and learning is often. Yes. And because it's on MCAT, just like we're on MCAT right now, that it is public, because believe it or not, people do watch those boring programs.
Trustee Dixon?
I think this is something we're going to have to talk about at the December 5th meeting, but as a student, I could never make a noon meeting. And so I think that's important to say, like, students can't go to those. We're in school. And unless teachers are having substitutes, it is hard for them to get there. I mean, the people who are supposed to be talking will get there because they have that capability, but I think it is something we need to discuss further as far as our structure, and I'm glad we're going to do that, so thanks.
Trustee Smith?
I was basically going to say what Trustee Dixon just said, that this is very important that we talk about this at that meeting, and also to reiterate, reinforce what Jim said, that the MCAT ones, I'm pretty sure, are now available on demand. You can actually search for past ones, so you can actually see the meetings. And also to point out that, again, we can't make everyone happy. There are students that can't make it during the day. There are parents that can't make it at night because they have child care issues and everything. But again, we'll talk about that on the 5th.
Trustee Lorenzen?
Well, I still think we could save some of the $35,000 by trimming the process, especially if there's a thought that it will go on past December in the off-site meetings. And I think that in addition to trimming the cost, we could improve the transparency. And I think, and as I said earlier, now it's just heartbreaking when the public says, we didn't see that coming. Because I think they try really hard. And I had to work really hard reading board minutes to find the decisions related to this process. I did a similar track on the decisions to put in the modulars, and I think that when the voting is done on this, like I said, it's going to be after 2 more board elections, we have to create a public record that's easily read, and so I think we have an opportunity here to save some money by pulling this process into the board meeting and to create a better public record.
Okay. Trustee Smith?
I just want to ask for clarification from Trustee Lorenzen. When you say pull into the board meeting, I guess I'm not sure. We get 250 people at those meetings. Do you want them to, I'm not sure what you mean by pull into the board meeting, the discussion that they're doing. Because we are relying on them. They're going to give us this report and we're going to rely on it. So I want to, just for clarification.
And Trustee Lorenzen?
Well, they have the meetings and there's a whole lot of groups there and they do the paperwork on the wall thing. And then there's the public meeting where they go over the paperwork. And on the one I did attend, there wasn't a central focal point and the people couldn't hear what the other people thought. And honestly, that's one of my concerns with the consent agenda. I don't know what you guys think. I only know what I read because we don't have these conversations. The people could come here, at least on the community listening session, and we could listen to them. And it would be on television and it would be in the newspaper and it would be in the record. And there would be no uncertainty about what was said. And then I think that, I mean, there's some phases to this that are pretty I don't know exactly how we trim the cost, but I'd sure like to see us try to say, let's bring some of this activity here to the board meeting, especially if, I mean, obviously we're committed to next week. If there's anything left after next week, I just think we should think about doing it here. And so that we get a public record, and so that people feel protected, that they've been heard, they've heard their neighbors, and it's all in writing.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Trustee Gray.
Thank you. To piggyback on what Trustee Dixon was saying about how students have a hard time making the day committee meetings, it's true. All night, I have repeatedly heard students, especially Trustee Graft, come and say that the students aren't being heard, and it's because they can't come to these committee meetings. They aren't able to get out of classes, and teachers don't appreciate them getting pulled out of classes to attend these meetings, missing tests and quizzes and vital notes. These are the only meetings that I personally can make because, again, I'm in class. I'm taking hard classes. I can't make those kinds of meetings. So again, from a student's perspective, it's appreciated to have these meetings and to have that kind of public comment and to keep everything really clear. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Holland.
I know I've spoken before. I misunderstood what Trustee Lorenzen was saying. I thought she was saying that we were talking about the $35,000 and whether it had been discussed before in the committee. You're talking about the planning meetings, is if I think what you're saying, and getting public input at a board meeting instead of going to renting a facility, to actually have the conversations here instead. So I misunderstood completely what, I thought we were on the more narrow issue of whether or not we've discussed this particular topic, and now I completely understand what you're saying. So.
Okay. Trustee Sadler.
We've done that before. We've had trustees meetings at Sentinel High School in which we had 200 or 300 people show up, and then we still voted, and not the way they wanted. But, I mean, it's all possible, and we can all discuss that at our December 5th meeting.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the additional funds as listed and structured, please identify by raising your hand. So it's 1, 2, 3. Trustee Wake, Dixon, Wills, Holland, Sadler, and Smith. Okay. Those opposed? Trustee Lorenzen and Trustee Beers. Abstaining? Trustee Tompkins, and the board also abstained, the chair also abstains. Okay, so that vote passes, and we have it's a 6-4, 2 against, and two abstain. Okay, so that does pass. Thank you. Moving on, we have an additional item, which is, item K, 11K, which is to approve salary increases for a superintendent office specialist. Dr. Apostle, can you give us some background, please?
You bet. I would just like to refer to pages 117 through 119. And I want to refresh the memory of the board, what I presented on June 11th, and that's on page 117. And my comments were that in relation to the restructure and saving nearly $90,000, that $90,000 would be used to support the restructuring process, and that I would come to the board if I were going to use some of that $90,000. And we've come to the board once before already for $12,000 to support Burley in his office with a half-time secretary. And as you can see, that's what I presented in June 2011. If you turn to, and there's the savings of $89,458 on page 118. And this is what I'm presenting to you based on a request by board members today, November 12th. This is the restructuring that I'm recommending, and this involves the additional $5,000 for Tracy Long to become the webmaster for the district. So the difference is that the Director of Communications and Technology will report directly to me. The following people will report to the Director of Communications and Technology. That's the social networking webmaster, and that we're asking for $5,000 because Tracy Long is handling this task currently, this function. If we were to go out and hire somebody, we would be paying anywhere between $30,000 and $50,000 for this position. So it's a pretty good deal at $5,000. Our Director of Communication and Technology would also manage and be responsible for the data manager, the information systems support specialist, and the technology services supervisor. The technology service supervisor, who is Art Sync Inc., would be responsible for the functions listed below in that particular box, and they would be responsible to the network coordinators, and there's two of those. They would be responsible for the PC network technicians. There's 6 of those, along with Ken Kunchel, who's at the help desk. And then we have an information system support specialist, and that's Susan Neville. So that's the way this structure would work. And I have all the faith in the world that it's an improvement in terms of what we've had in the past. But the main issue is that what we're saying is I'm asking to use $5,000 out of the nearly $90,000 that we've saved to add additional responsibilities to Tracy Long. Tracy's been doing this work all along, but now it's even more intense because it's more complex. Our system is becoming more complex as time goes on. So it's $5,000 is, in my opinion, a pretty good deal.
Okay.
And I said that that's what the money would be used for, and if you were to approve that, that'd be $17,000 in total that we've used out of the $89,000 plus. So that's where we're at.
So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve this salary increase. Moved by Trustee Sadler, seconded by Trustee Wake. Now the board discussion. Trustee Smith?
I appreciate the detail and the descriptions. However, I wonder if we have a $100 million budget, if we have to discuss every $5,000, that would be a little long-winded. So I understand why you came and you said you would. I just don't know if we're going to see this 15 more times for the rest of the $72,000 that is left. I personally hired you, or was part of the group that hired you to look after this stuff, and I appreciate the detail now. I'm just voicing my concerns that we're micromanaging, and I will vote for that.
Trustee Tompkins?
Again, this was an F&O request that this be placed on the consent agenda, and I wanted more clarification because this restructure that we received in July, dated July 9th on that agenda item, stated that the webmaster was a function and not a position. So now we're calling it a position.
No, it's a function. It is a function. It's an added function for Tracy Long.
But at the time, you called it a function of a different position of the, what I assumed.
You're correct.
Point of order. If you're going to be spoken, you have to be acknowledged by the chair.
Am I not? Okay. So what I was saying is that I wanted clarification on the restructure, first of all. Second of all, what I wanted to know is because on page 75, there's, from the F&O meeting minutes, it states, we are also hiring a replacement for the secretary receptionist position. So I'm assuming that's Tracy Long's position, is that correct?
Okay.
No, that's not.
Okay.
The secretary sorry.
Go ahead, Catton.
The secretary receptionist position is the district-wide secretary and receptionist. That's the individual that sits at the very front desk as you enter the superintendent's office suite, and they provide support to the entire district. That's who routes the phone calls throughout the district.
I'm not sure why this was entered into the minutes in this conversation then, but it looks like we were replacing Tracy Long with somebody else who was going to assume her duties as a personal assistant to the superintendent. Is not
I
true?
apologize, that is not accurate. I think
Okay.
I provided that as an additional FYI to let people know that that position would be hired. Melanie Michael had moved on to another position. We'd been filling that position with subs, and I wanted to let the board know that that position had been filled with a hire.
Thanks. So I don't want to nickel and dime anyone to death. That's not my intention. My intention is to try to find out how many new positions are being created in this wing and exactly when we're going to see the breakdown of what that is. And so I think 3 months' time is not a problem with getting that clarification.
Okay. Dr. Postle?
I think we've clearly stated the restructuring with this document dated November 12th. This is the restructuring. This is what works. This is the direction we need to go. Hatton's responsibilities have expanded tremendously in a short period of time. I think you've witnessed and observed some of the things that she's created, from videos to additional ways to communicate with the community and the press. We have someone that is going 100 miles an hour every single day, and to think that she could handle the website, it just won't work. This is a different environment today than it was 6 months ago. And that's why really when we saved the $90,000 and I said this money, we can appropriate it to support any changes coming down the line as it relates to the restructuring, this is a perfect example of that. And as the superintendent, quite frankly, if I deem that we need to do this, we need to do it.
Okay. Trustee Lorenzen?
I'm concerned with this appearance that this is an employee who's taken on extra duties, gone above and beyond the call of duty, and therefore gets $5,000. Now, as a school, our job is to employ teachers, and our teachers every day go above and beyond the call of duty. They make do with less, they take on more, their roles are constantly expanding, and they don't get $5,000. Now, if this person already had a 40-hour week job, and this is part of it, great. If this person is now, if we're creating a position that's more than 40 hours a week, I'm not sure that's an appropriate thing for us to do. So I don't think that we're micromanaging in this sense. I think we're setting a precedent where people who go above, who work really hard get paid extra, but we're a school first and foremost. Our employees are teachers first and foremost, and we can't do that for our teachers, and we can't do that for our aides, and we can't do that for our custodians. And therefore, I think it would be better not to do that for this one position.
Hatton?
I do want to take the opportunity to clarify and provide supporting information that this individual in filling this particular function directly supports our teachers. She relieves a lot of the burden from teachers who are either unable or unwilling to update their websites or provide that function for their school. So in ways that may not be obvious, this is directly supporting the mission and aims of our schools to communicate better with our parents and support our teachers. So I just want to make sure that's clear. I also think that it's important to be concerned about whether or not we're overextending somebody beyond a 40-hour week job. I don't think that's what we're doing. I think what we're doing is providing an additional stipend for a professional skill set that offers the district a solution that we need and can provide it efficiently. And it's certainly Dr. Apostle's professional recommendation, it's mine as well. We have a track record of paying our teachers additional stipends. I know it's not apples to apples in that case because that is additional work over, above, and beyond their work day, but I don't think that we're identifying additional work hours for this individual. We're identifying an additional skill set that we value.
Trustee Wake?
You're basically just changing her job description. Is that what you're saying?
Being new to this process, I would be extraordinarily careful agreeing to that because I am not entirely familiar with the union agreements related to job descriptions and that sort of thing within our district.
But in order to change, I'm sorry, can I still speak?
Please do.
And I guess the way I view this is like if you're in the private sector and you're asked to do you have additional job responsibilities, and those job responsibilities are a different scope than what they were before, you can give that employee an additional amount of money because their job has changed. So is that this person's job is changing, is that correct?
Yes, that's certainly how I view it.
So because it's changing and she's taking on additional responsibilities, those additional responsibilities require that she be brought up to a standard that would be equivalent to having a $5,000 more position, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Additional board comment? Trustee Holland?
I just wanted, perhaps it's a question for Mr. McHugh, but I know in the past year, although I think it was slightly different because it was a classified or certified group, but their job descriptions were changed because they were doing additional and higher skilled functions, and therefore the board agreed to recognize that in their salaries. And I guess I think like Ann does, this is pretty comparable to that. But I just don't know the relationship.
But it's true. It's actually what we do is it's a reclassification is what it's called. As a matter of fact, this month, this is the time that the MMCEO members bring their reclassification requests to me, and that's originally signed by their immediate supervisor. Then it comes to me. If they approve it, the immediate supervisor approves it, then it comes to me, and then I call the committee, and that would be 3 administrators and 2 MMCEO members, and we take a look at a reclassification. There were, I would say, probably 5 to 7, I'd have to think about it, but records clerk were reclassified last year. Diane Anderson was reclassified last year. Can we think of others, Pat, that, I think that was, and the ITs,
Exactly.
the people that are working in the computer. So there were actually quite a few of them. There were about 10 or 11 that were, because of, just like you were saying, Ann, because of responsibility factors. It's not more work, it's more responsibility. That's exactly how we talk about it in terms of that.
Thank you. Trustee Smith?
Thank you for that clarification. That helped a lot. I wanted to mention, too, that I think in supporting the teachers for this website, we've also had discussions earlier tonight about being a 21st century, about being, why can't we have, different methods? Well, the websites are used quite often. I have talked to many parents, and it's an extra task for the teachers, and some of them are really good at it. The problem is that the ones that are really good at it set the bar very high for the ones that don't get enough exposure to it or whatever. And I think that getting this extra, this is someplace where we need help that will address bringing us up to 21st century, and it will also address some comments and requests that I hear from the public.
Trustee Sadler?
The administration office is not under any union. I think they are they have their own individual group that they negotiate with. Also, the administrators, we set an overall salary or budget for that for the administration and so forth, and the superintendent can move within that. The 90,000 was within that things, and I would think that as long as he doesn't spend over the 90,000, he doesn't really have to ask us. This is really being done for us to put everything out and talk about it, and which is appreciated. I'm sure that And also, we should focus on the fact that we're going to have somebody who's actually is going to be responsible for this function. And because they're considered responsible for it, they will be evaluated for it. And if you're going to be evaluated and be responsible for it, and you're required to have a skill set, which means that you will do private readings, private looking up things for yourself to make sure that you can get an evaluation which shows that you have the skills necessary. That if we're going to require that of somebody, we should require we should give them more money for it. So I think I would say this is just fine.
Trustee Beers?
All right, point of clarification. So we agreed as a board that there's $90,000 that we're saving anytime that pot of money is reached into, it would be brought to the board. So that was, anytime that 90,000 would be used, it would be brought to the board. I thought that's what I heard you say before.
Dr. Apostle?
That's exactly what I said.
Okay,
in
so I wanted to address just a comment, and please, I'd invite correction, but I think it's a dangerous statement to make. One thing that did not get restructured was that the box above all of this is the board of directors. So when it's agreed on that as a superintendent or an administrator, you come to us with decisions, it's up to us. It's not simply a matter of this is what I think should be done and it should be done. That did not get restructured. This board and the people that voted the people on this board are under the understanding that that's our job. Our job is to take the opinion and then make the decision. So just in point of clarification, not this issue specifically, but when I hear things like, we think this should be done and it should be done, it makes me and the people I talk to very, very nervous.
Trustee Dixon?
I guess I would like to say I'm glad that this came back, just since the restructure itself was a little bit controversial and was talked out kind of last minute and wasn't completely formed. It wasn't a full formed thing. We didn't know what kind of support Hatton would need. We didn't even know Hatton was going to be our communications person. So I think I'm really glad that it's coming back to us when there is functions that need filled. I'm concerned that this needs to be added to her job description, because if you're tacking on additional responsibilities but not actually like writing them down, when we need to replace this person, then they have all of these extra responsibilities that we need to find somebody to fill, and perhaps we'll need multiple people to fill. It seems like this person in particular has the skill set to provide what we need, but later on down the road, will we be able to find somebody with that skill set? And I also appreciate that you're coming back to us with the costs that are associated with this for our approval, just because it's important when we tell voters that we're saving this amount of money to then say, hey, this is how we're spending it. I think that that's really important for people to hear. Even if it seems like a little bit of money, like if we're saying, hey, we're saving this money, we also need to know where that money went. I think that's really important, and I would like to see where the rest of that money goes, and I'm kind of hoping it's not with administrative costs. I'd like to see it right in the schools directly, so thanks.
Any additional, Trustee Lorenzen?
Well, I think we need to make 2 points here. One is that pennies make dollars. Every dollar counts. We're tight. We're really short of money. We're going to need to run a bond issue, as I understood from our last meeting, just to make the elementary budget balance. So $5,000 maybe it doesn't look like much, but I think we need to get a mindset where every dollar counts. And as my grandma would say, pennies make dollars. The second thing is, I feel that this gives the impression that admin employees get special treatment compared to teaching employees. And I think like I said before, and I don't mean to be repetitive, our job is to hire teachers and put them in the classroom with children. admin is just a support function. And so I don't want to give our teachers the impression that our admin employees are getting special treatment.
Any additional board comment? Trustee Tompkins?
So just to clarify one more time, Tracy Long is now going to be the webmaster and will no longer be your personal assistant.
She has many responsibilities. This is just another function that she will perform, that she's been performing, quite honestly.
Okay.
Trustee Wake?
I have another question. Steve, when you do this reclassification, you're going to write a new job description, is that correct?
Well, let's talk about it a little differently because Tracy is she's not in the union. What I was doing is when Marcia asked that question, that there is a way for our MMCEO members to get a raise if they are shown that their job has changed, not in the amount of work that they're doing, but the responsibility. And I think that's exactly what Alex is trying to say here right now, is that Tracy's responsibility has gone up, and so therefore there's a reward to it. So I mean that's what I mean by that. It's a non-union employee in this particular situation. What's that? Oh, it'll go into our job description though, yes. I'm sorry if that's I would assume that that's exactly what we're going to do, because when we take a look at things like that, then it does get into their job description.
Trustee Holland?
Just to clarify, I was trying to use that situation as an analogy, because I knew they were different situations between administrative staff and staff that has to go through MMEO. But I agree with Rose, it needs to be added to her job description because replacement positions have to reflect the work the person's doing. And I think what got kind of confusing at the meeting is I understood Hatton to add an anecdotal piece of information about the change in the secretary, just to say there were other changes going on in in that room. And somehow that got, if you weren't there, you didn't appreciate that we weren't talking about eliminating a position or Tracy's other responsibilities. It was an anecdotal side note. So.
Any additional board comment? Okay, well, I'm going to reserve take advantage of my reserve to comment a little bit. We just spent half an hour talking about $5,000 and a $100 million budget. And I appreciate some of the implications and some of the sidebar comments, but that's really the bottom line of what just happened here. As the board chair and as somebody who has sat on various boards, this is really not our task. Our task is to oversee the budget of the district, not every line item. And I think we need to trust the good graces of the people that we've hired. And if we don't trust their good graces, we shouldn't hire them. Plain and simple. I think it's this degree of insight. While I appreciate where it's come from, and I think it has some merit on its face, in particular with the issue of the restructuring and the way that was presented earlier on this year, I am very concerned that if this is the future of what this board is all about, we're not going to have 4-hour meetings, we're going to have 40-hour meetings. So I just really caution us as we move forward as a board as to the level of detail we choose to put into such issues. Is there any additional board comment? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the 5,000, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, and my apologies to everybody that I did not ask for public comment on the other agenda items that were just voted on. I will make a comment that I don't see any public in this meeting other than us, but your point is well taken. Thank you, Megan, very much. Having no public comment, the motion is to approve this salary increase as webmaster for this particular position administration. Those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Trustee Wake, Wills, Holland, Sadler, and Smith. Those opposed? Trustees Lorenzen, Tompkins, and Beers abstaining. Trustee Dixon, sorry, it's been a long night, and I will also abstain. Okay. Thank you all, and so that's 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 4, 5 in, wait, it's 5 plus, it's 5, 4, 3 against, and 2 abstentions. Wait a second, is that true? Then I'm going to change my vote to a pass, to a yes. Yes, I can. As a non-vote, you can, any member can alter their vote. So there will be six in favor and three against and 1 abstention. Okay. Thank you all. Next, we'll move on to item L, I guess it is, general fund update. Mr. McHugh?
All right, I'll be brief. This is on page 121, 122. We talked about this in F&O. What's presented under adjusted budget is not accurate. It's not up to date. It's reflective of last year's budget. So on the elementary side, that budget's not 31 million, but 33 million. And on the high school side, not 26, but 27 million plus. But the data provided is through September 30th. That's our first quarter of the year, and the expenses detailed on page 122 are consistent with our expenses last year, a little higher, which is understandable given pay increases, additional staff, that type of thing. That's all I have for that. I did want to mention on the following page 123, I've attached a memo from our director for work comp carrier. I've incorporated this in the agenda at Dr. Apostle's suggestion, just really as much as anything to recognize Teresa Rouillet, who's our payroll supervisor and has done an excellent job, as you can see here with comparing our quarterly 941s with our actual payroll reports, which came out perfectly, as well as the work comp rates that were applied to our staff. So I commend her efforts and thank Dr. Apostle for putting this in the agenda.
Thank you, Pat. We'll move on to item 12, which is buildings and grounds transportation. Burley?
I will be brief as well. Speak a little bit about the building reserve. We're still kind of tightening our belts and keeping our building reserve at budget for the year so far. So we're looking really good there, and we'll continue to push those efforts. Talk a little bit about food service. We are, Stacy Rossmiller, our food service supervisor, is currently working with Mountain Lion to work on getting free transportation for kids for the summer feeding program, so we can get more kids to our school sites to have that summer feeding program. That's a great process Stacy's working on. Long-term facility plan. We're currently putting a, hold on a second. I was dared to do this. No, I'm just kidding. So this is a box that we had. Our trades and crafts carpenters built these boxes, and they're comment boxes for our facility strategic plan. They're going to be placed at Missoula County or Missoula Public Library, the Big Sky Public Library, and the Sealy Lake Public Library, so we can get some good feedback from community members in Missoula and Sealy Lake. They were painted by Annie Hall's class at Chief Charlo, 2nd grade. So they did a fantastic job. So if when you guys go see the Charlo staff, make sure you extra special thanks to Annie Hall and her class. From what I was told, the kids loved it and didn't make too big of a mess. So I want to speak a little bit about the stadium donation we had from. It was actually money from the original remodel when they redid was it early 2000? Pat, do you know what year they did it? Late 90s when they remodeled the stadium, added on bleachers and whatnot. Ken Stanager was behind all that. There's still funds left over in an account that's being kind of facilitated by Missoula Chamber, and they were kind of donate $30,000 to buy us a new state-of-the-art PA system for the stadium, which is in dire need. So that's a big win for our stadium that we'll have installed and up and running before track season. Our Safety and Security Advisory Committee, we have been working on the action plan. We presented that to you guys in September, and the first advisory committee meeting will be on the 25th of this month. We'll do a lunch, and we have about 23 members, I believe, on that committee, which is put together from the Safety and Security Committee as well as the Facility Committee. So we're going to combine those and do some meetings to keep us on track in safety and security world. And that's where we're at with that. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Burley. We'll move on to item number 13, which is the PNP section, which is to approve the personnel report. We do not take board comment. We do take public comment on the personnel report for not for specific issues, but on the report itself. And this is a motion item, so I wonder if I can get a motion to approve or moved by Trustee Sadler, seconded by Trustee Wake. There's no board comment given on this, and there is no public here to comment. So I'd move all those in favor, please. And opposed? None. That passes unanimously. And I believe what we have left is the consent agenda. And if you would bear with me, if you want to read through, it's on page 161, from Finance and Operations, to approve the claims and extracurricular report, to approve grant application summaries, to approve out-of-district attendance agreements, to approve request to bid replacement fiber optics data backbone system, to approve request to issue a request for qualification. Oh, we passed that. Sorry, that's off. Item E is not on the consent agenda. Item F, to approve request to issue a request for proposal for internet services. Item G, to approve request to issue a request for proposals for email archiving student Google applications for education monitoring. Item H, to approve a request to issue a request for a proposal for district website hosting services. Under Personnel Negotiations and Policies, to authorize an incentive for early notification of retirement, to approve cost-neutral sabbatical leaves, to approve elementary class size resolution 2014-3E and secondary class size, to approve the grant application summaries, to approve revision of Board Policy 2510, which is health and wellness, to approve revision of Board Policy 3110, entrance, placement, and transfer, to approve adoption of Board Policy 3213, children of military families, to approve adoption of Board Policy 4100, family engagement, to approve revision of Board Policy 4330, use of school facilities, to approve revision of Board Policy 5122, fingerprints and criminal background, to approve revision of Board Policy 5460, conflicts of interest, and to approve revision of Board Policy 7010 on purchasing. If there's a motion to accept by Trustee Wake, seconded by Trustee Smith. Any discussion? I guess we have discussion? I guess we do on the consent agenda. Okay. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Just want to announce, and this is not on the calendar here, but I'm sure every board member is aware of this, but I'll announce it anyway. It's Thursday, December 5th, 2013, from 5 to 7 p.m. Board of Trustees work session focusing on boardsmanship here in the Business Building Boardroom. That's December 5th, 5 to 7 p.m. Important dates. 1/2 day no school K-12 conferences, Thursday, November 14th. No school K-12 conferences, Friday, November 15th. Finance and Operations Committee meeting Wednesday, November 20th, 2013, 3:00 p.m. here in the boardroom. Facility Strategic Plan Steering Committee Thursday, November 21, 2013, 6 p.m. here in the business boardroom. No school Thanksgiving holiday Wednesday, November 27th, 2013. No school Thanksgiving holiday Thursday, November 28th. Friday, November 29th, 2013. Administration building closed. Teaching and Learning Committee meeting Monday, December 2nd, 12 p.m. noon, Business Building Boardroom. Facility Strategic Plan, PK20 district-wide 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. That's Monday, December 2nd, at the Broadway Inn Conference Center. And then Region 1 Elementary Schools, the same day, 12:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., again at the Broadway Inn Conference Center. Facility Strategic Plan, Tuesday, December 3rd, 2013. Region 2 Elementary Schools, 8:30 to 11:30. Region 3 Elementary Schools, 12:30 to 3:30 p.m., again in the Broadway Inn Conference Center. Personnel Negotiations Policy Committee meeting, Wednesday, December 4, 2013, 12 noon, here in the boardroom. Facility Strategic Plan, all middle schools, Wednesday, December 4, 8:30 to 3:30 p.m. at Broadway Inn. Facility Strategic Plan Community Listening Session, Wednesday, December 4, 6:30 to 8 p.m., Broadway Inn. Facility Strategic Plan Regions 1 and 3, high schools, 8:30 to 3:30, Broadway Inn. Facility Strategic Plan Region 2, high schools, lifelong learning, UM. That's Friday, December 6th, 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., again at the Broadway Inn. Board of Trustees regular meeting Tuesday, December 10th, 6 p.m., Business Building Boardroom. And as you can see, if you want to talk about transparency, it's pretty obvious here. We're very transparent. We're going to have over 150 people in most of these sessions during the first week of December.
Okay, item 16, we have no old business in addition to what's already been discussed. We have no new business under item 17, and so we are adjourned. Thank you all.